What happens when a duchess walks into a financial news studio, expecting softball questions, and walks out facing the biggest media storm of her career? The answer might shock you, but what happened between Meghan Markle and Bloomberg anchor Emily Chang wasn't just uncomfortable, it was career-defining. Before we get into this absolute mess, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think really went down here, because this interview went places nobody expected. So picture this. Meghan Markle sits down across from Emily Chang at Bloomberg's London studio. The set is pristine, those trademark Bloomberg monitors glowing in the background. Ticker symbols scrolling past like nothing unusual is about to happen. Meghan is dressed impeccably. Navy blazer, cream blouse, that signature polished look she's perfected over the years. She's smiling, confident, ready to talk about her latest venture, some kind of lifestyle investment portfolio or wellness brand expansion. Emily Chang, for those who don't know, is not your typical entertainment reporter. She's a hard-hitting financial journalist who made her name grilling tech CEOs and hedge fund managers. She doesn't do puff pieces. The cameras start rolling, and Emily opens with what seems like a friendly enough greeting. "Good afternoon, Duchess. Thank you for joining us today." Meghan smiles warmly, responds with her usual charm. "Thank you so much for having me, Emily. I'm thrilled to be here." The first few questions are standard fare. Tell us about your new business venture. What inspired this particular direction? Meghan delivers her rehearsed answers smoothly, talking about empowerment, about creating opportunities, about building something meaningful. She's in her element, or so she thinks. Then Emily shifts in her seat, glances down at her notes, and the temperature in the room changes. "You know, Duchess," she says, her tone still professional, but noticeably cooler. "I want to shift gears for a moment, if you don't mind. Your business ventures have attracted significant investment. We're talking millions of dollars from various sources. Can you walk us through your financial background, your experience in business management prior to these recent endeavors?" Meghan's smile tightens just slightly. "Well, Emily, I've always been entrepreneurial. Even during my acting career, I was involved in various projects. And of course, I've worked with incredible teams who bring expertise in areas where I'm still learning." Emily nods slowly, not breaking eye contact. "I see. So would you say you're learning on the job with other people's money?" The question hangs in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Meghan laughs, but it sounds forced. "I wouldn't characterize it that way at all. I have advisors, as any business person does." Emily leans forward slightly. "Of course, advisors are standard. But there's been some concern raised, and I want to give you the opportunity to address this directly. 3 former employees from your previous ventures have come forward alleging financial mismanagement. Specifically, they claim that funds designated for one project were redirected to personal expenses. Can you respond to that?" The color drains from Meghan's face just for a second before she recovers. "I'm sorry, I'm not aware of any such allegations." "This is the first I'm hearing of this." Emily doesn't blink. "Really?" "Because these allegations were detailed in a report filed with the Financial Conduct Authority 2 weeks ago. Your legal team would have been notified." Meghan shifts in her chair, her media training kicking in. "Emily, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. My team handles various matters, and I can't speak to every piece of paperwork that crosses their desks. But I can tell you with absolute certainty that any suggestion of financial impropriety is completely false." Emily picks up a document from beside her monitor. "I have the report right here. Would you like me to read the specific accusations?" The 3 individuals who worked directly under your oversight between 2021 and 2023 claim that approximately $700,000 meant for a charitable initiative was instead used for, and I'm quoting here, personal travel, wardrobe expenses, and private event hosting. They further allege that when they raised concerns internally, they were pushed out of the organization and required to sign NDAs. Can you explain this? Meghan's composure is cracking now. This is completely inappropriate. Emily, you're ambushing me with accusations from disgruntled former employees who clearly have an axe to grind. If there were any legitimate concerns, they would have been addressed through proper channels. Emily's expression doesn't change. They did use proper channels. That's why there's an FCA report. I'm asking you, as someone who has built a public brand on transparency and advocacy, to address these specific claims. Did funds get redirected or not? I'm not going to dignify this with a response, Meghan says, her voice rising slightly. "This is exactly the kind of tabloid journalism disguised as legitimate reporting that I've had to deal with for years." Emily cuts in smoothly. "This isn't tabloid journalism, Duchess. This is financial journalism. When someone manages millions of dollars in investor capital and employee complaints emerge alleging misuse of funds, that's news. That's accountability. The public has a right to know, especially when you've positioned yourself as a businesswoman and role model." Meghan's jaw tightens. "You clearly came into this interview with an agenda." Emily shakes her head. "No agenda except the truth. You're here promoting new business ventures, asking people to invest their trust and money in your vision. Don't they deserve to know if there are unresolved questions about how you've managed resources in the past?" Meghan looks off camera, clearly seeking help from someone in her team. The camera catches it, that moment of panic, that break in the carefully constructed image. "Let me ask you this," Emily continues, not giving her space to recover. "The NDAs you had these employees sign, were those standard confidentiality agreements, or were they specifically designed to prevent them from speaking about financial practices? Because that distinction matters quite a bit legally." Meghan's voice is sharp now. "I don't discuss the details of employment agreements publicly. That would be irresponsible." Emily nods. "But you understand how that looks, right? Employees raise concerns about money, they get pushed out. They sign agreements that prevent them from talking. And now, when they've found a legal avenue to speak up, you're calling them disgruntled and refusing to address their specific claims. This is outrageous," Meghan says, standing up slightly as if to leave. Emily remains seated, calm. "You're welcome to leave if you'd like, but I should mention that your communications director specifically agreed to this line of questioning when we outlined the interview topics. We sent over the areas we'd be covering 48 hours ago. Your team approved it." Meghan freezes. That's not accurate." Emily pulls out an email, turns her monitor toward the camera. "Here's the email chain. Your director, Sarah Mitchell, confirmed receipt and approval. Would you like me to read it on air?" Meghan slowly sits back down. The power dynamic has completely shifted. She's no longer the composed Duchess graciously giving her time to the press. She's someone caught off guard, unprepared, and visibly rattled. Emily presses on. "I want to be clear about something. I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to ask questions that need asking. If these allegations are false, if there's been some massive misunderstanding, then explain it. Help us understand. Because right now, what we have is a documented complaint with the FCA. 3 individuals willing to put their names on record. And your refusal to address any of it substantively." Meghan takes a breath, clearly trying to regain control. "Look, Emily, business is complicated. There are always going to be people who are unhappy, who feel they deserved more, who want to create drama. I have built my career on integrity. Everything I do is vetted by lawyers and accountants. If there was any genuine wrongdoing, do you really think I'd be sitting here?" Emily tilts her head slightly. "That's not really an answer, though, is it? You're speaking in generalities. I'm asking about specific allegations. $700,000. Charitable funds. Personal expenses. Address it directly." The silence that follows is excruciating. Meghan looks directly into the camera, then back at Emily. I would need to consult with my legal team before making any detailed statements about ongoing matters." Emily nods. "So you acknowledge these are ongoing matters? That there is, in fact, an investigation?" Meghan realizes her mistake immediately. "I didn't say investigation. I said ongoing matters. Any business has ongoing matters." Emily writes something down. "The FCA report does constitute an investigation, though, whether formal or preliminary. So by acknowledging ongoing matters in this context, you're essentially confirming that there is some form of inquiry happening." Meghan stands up again, this time removing her microphone. "I think we're done here." Emily remains professional. "That's your choice, of course. But I want to make sure I understand your position for our viewers. You're declining to answer questions about financial allegations. You're suggesting the employees making these claims are simply disgruntled. And you're ending the interview rather than providing clarity. Is that an accurate summary?" Meghan's hands are shaking slightly as she fumbles with the microphone clip. "What's accurate is that I came here in good faith, and you turned this into an attack. This isn't journalism, it's a hit piece." Emily finally shows a flash of emotion. "With respect, Duchess, if asking about documented financial complaints is an attack, then perhaps the issue isn't the questioning." Meghan doesn't respond. She's already walking toward the studio door, her team scrambling to follow her. ... Emily doesn't stand. She doesn't chase after Meghan or raise her voice. She simply watches as the Duchess heads toward the exit, then turns back to face the camera with the kind of composure that comes from years of handling difficult interviews. She glances at her producer off-screen, gets a nod, and makes a decision in real time. Duchess, if you walk out now, I can't control the narrative that follows. But if you sit back down, we can have an actual conversation about this. Your choice. Meghan stops at the studio door, her hand on the handle. You can see the calculation happening behind her eyes, the PR nightmare of walking out versus the discomfort of staying. Her communications director whispers something urgent in her ear. After what feels like an eternity, Meghan turns around, walks back, and sits down. But the energy is completely different now. She's not here as a willing participant anymore. She's here because leaving would look worse. Emily watches her settle back into the chair, then speaks in a measured tone. Thank you for staying. I genuinely do want to hear your side of this. Meghan's voice is tight, controlled. Fine, let's talk about it. But I want to make something clear first. The 3 individuals you mentioned, they weren't just employees. They were contractors who were let go because they weren't meeting performance standards. They knew they were underperforming, and when their contracts weren't renewed, they decided to retaliate with fabricated allegations. Emily picks up her pen. Okay, so you're saying their claims are completely fabricated? Can you provide documentation showing their performance issues? Because in their complaint, they actually include emails where they were praised for their work just weeks before being terminated. Meghan falters. I don't have access to every piece of internal communication right now. Emily nods slowly. But you did bring a communications team with you today. Surely they could pull those emails if they exist. There's a long pause. Meghan glances toward her team again. The cameras catch everything. Every moment of hesitation, every silent plea for help. Emily continues, her voice still professional but relentless. Let's talk about the money itself. The $700,000. Your organization received that funding from a private foundation, specifically for a girls' education initiative in developing countries. The complaint alleges that only $200,000 actually made it to that program. Can you account for where the other $500,000 went? Meghan's frustration is barely contained now. Operating expenses, Emily. Do you know how expensive it is to run a legitimate charitable operation? There are staff salaries, office costs, travel to oversee projects, marketing to raise awareness. You can't just snap your fingers and deliver programs without infrastructure. Emily leans back slightly. That's absolutely true, and no one expects charities to operate without overhead. Standard practice is typically 15 to 30% for administrative costs. But $500,000 out of $700,000 is over 70%. That's not standard. That raises red flags for anyone familiar with nonprofit management. Meghan's voice hardens. We're not a traditional nonprofit. We're a hybrid model, combining business principles with charitable work. It's more expensive because we're doing things differently, more effectively. Emily raises an eyebrow. More effectively? Can you quantify that? How many girls were reached by that $200,000 that actually made it to the program? Meghan shifts uncomfortably. I'd need to get you exact numbers. Emily already has a document ready. According to the initial grant proposal, you promised to reach 5,000 girls. According to the complaint and supporting documents, the program reached approximately that's 6% of your stated goal. Would you say that's effective? The color rises in Meghan's cheeks. Those numbers don't reflect the full picture. We had to scale differently than initially planned. We encountered obstacles on the ground. We had to pivot our strategy. Emily cuts in. So the $500,000 that went to overhead and expenses, was that part of the pivot? Because the employees alleged that a significant portion of that money went to first-class travel for you personally, designer wardrobes for public appearances, and private dinners at exclusive venues. Is that true? Absolutely not, Meghan snaps. Or at least, it's being grossly Yes, I traveled to meet with donors and stakeholders. Yes, I needed appropriate attire for high-level meetings where we were securing future funding. Yes, we hosted events to build relationships with potential partners. All of that is standard for someone in a leadership position trying to grow an organization. But calling it personal expenses is deliberately misleading. Emily nods thoughtfully. So you're acknowledging those expenses occurred, But you're saying they were legitimate business costs. Were they disclosed to the foundation that provided the grant? Meghan hesitates again. Our financial reports were submitted according to the grant requirements. That's not what I asked, Emily says quietly. Were those specific expenses disclosed? Did the foundation know that their money was going toward your first-class flights and designer clothes? Because transparency matters here. If you told them up front that's how funds would be allocated, that's one thing. If you didn't, that's something else entirely. Meghan's voice rises. You're twisting everything. You're making it sound like I was living some lavish lifestyle on charity money. I was doing my job. I was representing the organization. Emily doesn't back down. In the grant application, your organization stated that 85% of funds would go directly to program delivery. 2 months after receiving the money, you were photographed in Paris wearing a custom gown that fashion reporters estimated cost $40,000. 3 weeks later, you were in New York, staying at a hotel that runs $5,000 per night. These aren't secret expenses. They were documented in public. Were they paid for by the foundation grant? Meghan looks genuinely cornered now. Some expenses were covered by the organization. Yes, but you're cherry-picking moments and ignoring all the work that was happening simultaneously. Emily pulls out another document. Let's talk about one specific expense then. In March of that year, 3 months into the grant period, your organization paid $65,000 to a public relations firm for what was described in internal documents as image rehabilitation. This was after some negative press coverage about your personal life. Can you explain why charity funds went toward managing your personal reputation? Meghan's mouth opens and closes. That wasn't about me personally. It was about protecting the organization's reputation. Emily's skeptical expression speaks volumes. The organization that's named after you, that uses your image in all its marketing. That's essentially built around your personal brand. It's not that simple, Meghan insists, but her voice lacks conviction now. Everything is connected. If my reputation suffers, the organization suffers. We can't separate the two. So yes, managing public perception was necessary to protect our ability to fundraise and deliver on our mission. Emily lets that sit for a moment. So you're saying that paying a PR firm $65,000 to handle your personal press was actually in service of the girls' education program that only received $200,000 total. Meghan realizes how that sounds. You're deliberately making it sound worse than it is. I'm quoting numbers from the complaint. Emily responds evenly. If they're wrong, correct them. Meghan takes a visible breath, trying to reset. Look, here's the reality. When you're trying to do good in the world, when you're trying to build something meaningful, there are costs involved that people don't see or understand. Yes, I traveled extensively. Yes, I needed to present myself in certain ways to access certain rooms. Yes, we spent money on communications and relationship building. But all of that was in service of creating something sustainable. Something that would continue helping people long after that initial grant. Emily nods slowly. That's a reasonable argument. But the employees who filed this complaint, they're saying that you explicitly told them to categorize personal expenses as business costs. They're saying you instructed them to obscure the true nature of spending in reports to the foundation. Are they lying? Meghan's eyes flash. Yes, they're lying. Or at minimum, they're completely misunderstanding conversations and contexts. Emily picks up another page. One of them kept recordings. Did you know that? The color drains from Meghan's face again. That's illegal. Actually, Emily says calmly, in the jurisdiction where the recordings were made, only one party needs to consent. She was legally allowed to record workplace conversations, and in these recordings, which have been submitted as part of the FCA complaint, there are several instances where you discuss how to present expenses in ways that wouldn't raise questions from the foundation. Would you like me to play them? No, Meghan says quickly. No, I don't consent to that. Emily tilts her head. You don't consent to audio recordings of your own voice being played. Recordings that are now part of an official complaint. Meghan's lawyer, who's been standing off camera, finally steps in closer. But Meghan waves her off, some part of her still believing she can talk her way through this. Those recordings, if they even exist, are taken out of context. Conversations that span hours, reduced to snippets that sound damning but don't reflect the full reality. Emily considers this. Then help us understand the context. In one clip, You allegedly tell an employee to list a $20,000 wardrobe expense under training materials. What's the context that makes that appropriate? Meghan scrambles. I don't remember that specific conversation. But if I said something like that, it was probably because we were discussing an appearance where I was literally representing the organization, teaching people about our work through my presence and presentation. In that sense, the wardrobe was a training tool. Emily's expression shows she's not buying it. That's quite a stretch, Duchess. Meghan's voice rises defensively. It's how modern philanthropy works. Whether you like it or not, people respond to image and presentation. A polished, professional appearance opens doors that casual attire wouldn't. That's just reality. So you're admitting you did instruct employees to categorize personal wardrobe as training materials, Emily clarifies. Meghan realizes she's been trapped again. I'm saying that the lines between personal and professional were necessarily blurred, given the nature of the work. Emily writes something down, then looks up. Let's talk about the end. Why did you require departing employees to sign non-disclosure agreements that specifically prevented them from discussing financial practices? Meghan sighs heavily. Every organization uses It's about protecting proprietary information, protecting strategy, protecting the organization from people who might want to harm it after they leave. But these NDAs were unusually restrictive, Emily counters. They didn't just prevent sharing of trade secrets or strategic plans. They explicitly forbade any discussion of how money was spent, how decisions were made regarding finances, and any internal concerns that were raised about compliance. That goes beyond standard protection. That looks like covering something up. Meghan shakes her head firmly. That's your interpretation, not the reality. ... Asterisk, Emily doesn't let up. When employees sign agreements that prevent them from discussing potential financial misconduct, and then those same employees find legal channels to raise those exact concerns, it suggests the NDAs were designed to silence rather than protect. Meghan's exhaustion is showing now. Or it suggests that people sign agreements willingly when they're employed, and then regret those agreements when they want to cause trouble later. Emily leans forward. Except 2 of the 3 employees tried to raise concerns internally before they were terminated. They went to your chief operating officer. They documented their concerns in writing, and within 2 weeks they were gone. That's not causing trouble. That's whistleblowing. Meghan's voice cracks slightly. They were underperforming. Their termination had nothing to do with any concerns they raised. Emily pulls out yet another document. Your former coup actually contradicts that. She resigned 6 months after these employees were let go, and in her exit interview with your board, she stated that she was uncomfortable with how financial concerns were being handled, and that employees who raised questions were systematically pushed out. She declined to sign the NDA you offered her. Do you remember that? The silence is deafening. Meghan stares at Emily, and for the first time, she seems to have no response prepared, no pivot ready. Emily continues, her voice softer now, but no less pointed. Duchess, I want to be clear about something. Nobody expects perfection. Running a charitable organization is complicated, expensive, and filled with difficult decisions. But what people do expect is honesty. If mistakes were made, own them. If expenses were higher than anticipated, explain why. If the model didn't work as planned, say so. What erodes trust is the denial, the deflection, the NDAs, the refusal to engage with legitimate questions. Meghan's eyes are glassy now. Whether from anger or tears, it's hard to tell. You don't understand what it's like to have every single thing you do scrutinized, picked apart, used against you. Every decision questioned, every expense examined, every word twisted. I was trying to do good work, and I'm being crucified for it. Emily's expression softens just slightly. I can't imagine the pressure you're under, truly. But that doesn't exempt you from accountability. The foundation that gave you that money, they trusted you. The girls who were supposed to benefit from that program, they were counting on you. The employees who raised concerns, they deserved to be heard rather than silenced. When you accept that level of responsibility, scrutiny comes with it. Meghan wipes at her eye quickly. So, what do you want from me? A full confession on air. Emily shakes her head. I want the truth. Can you honestly tell me that every dollar was spent appropriately? That every decision was made in the best interest of the mission? That no funds intended for charitable work ended up supporting your personal lifestyle? Meghan looks down at her hands. The silence stretches. Finally, she speaks, her voice barely above a whisper. It got complicated. Things that seemed reasonable at the time, decisions that made sense in the moment. Maybe they don't look as clear in hindsight. Emily waits, giving her space. Meghan continues, I believed I was building something important. I believed that investing in the infrastructure, in the relationships, in the visibility, would pay off in the long run. Maybe I blurred some lines. Maybe I let personal and professional overlap in ways that weren't always appropriate. But I never intentionally misused funds. I genuinely thought I was doing what needed to be done. Emily nods slowly. That's the most honest thing you've said this entire interview. Meghan looks up, surprised. The question now, Emily continues, is what happens next? Will you cooperate fully with the FCA investigation? Will you release those employees from their NDAs so they can speak freely? Will you commission an independent audit of all your organization's finances? Meghan takes a shaky breath. I'll have to discuss all of that with my legal team. Emily's expression hardens again, which means probably not. Meghan doesn't deny it. Emily turns to face the camera directly. What we've witnessed here is unfortunately common in the world where celebrity meets philanthropy. Good intentions don't automatically translate to good practices. Visibility doesn't equal accountability. And when questions arise, transparency matters more than reputation management. Meghan stands again, this time clearly done for real. Emily doesn't try to stop her. As the Duchess removes her microphone and walks away without another word, Emily addresses the viewers. We reached out to the foundation that provided the grant. They declined to comment on ongoing matters, but confirmed they've requested a full accounting of how their funds were used. We'll continue following this story. Emily Chang, Bloomberg News. The screen fades to black, but the implications hang heavy in the air. This wasn't just a difficult interview. This was a moment where someone's carefully constructed image collided with documented allegations, and the cracks became impossible to ignore. Whether Meghan Markle can recover from this, whether the allegations will lead to formal charges, whether this marks a turning point in how celebrity philanthropy is scrutinized, those are all questions that remain unanswered. But what's clear is that the conversation has fundamentally shifted. If you found this breakdown compelling, make sure you subscribe to the channel because we're going to keep following this story as it develops. And drop a comment below answering this question. Do you think celebrities should be held to higher standards when managing charitable funds? Or are the expectations unrealistic given the complexity of modern philanthropy? Let me know your thoughts.